Okay, we haven't started anything, so that's okay. I've just introduced the sessions in the KubeVela. You can search it in the Synthesize website. Okay, today we have two topics. They are both brought by Fog. The first one is vela adopt all command, which is super easy for you to adopt all the resources in Kubernetes namespace to applications. It helps to migrate from the existing systems to KubeVela platform. The second topic, Fog will introduce the integrating of ChatGPT into workflow, which will help to diagnose and audit your resources. This cutting edge and popular AI model will help you spot any issues and optimize your deployment like Breeze. If you have any questions during the introduction, feel free to ask and start a discussion. Thanks for joining, and let's get started. It's up to you, Fog.
I don't have the permission to share my screen.
Okay, we get this problem every time. Then check. Okay, I have opened the permission.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so before I get started, there's another message that I want to share with you. So if you are attending the KubeCon, you can see one of our maintainer, Daniel, will be there, and he will share a tutorial talking about KubeVela. And he also, I think he will bring some KubeVela merchants like stickers or t-shirts. So if you will join that event and you can meet with him in person, I think it's time to deliver some KubeVela merchants in that conference. Okay, so let's get started. So the first topic I want to share today is the command that we just released in 1.7, and this command is called vela adopt all. We have already have this command in the previous version, but we just add this adopt all command to have this capability to automatically, adopt all the native resource or like Helm resource in the clusters into our application. So if you use this help, you can see some explanation here, like, so basically this command will use some resource topology. It is like to say, by default, this command will try to adopt all the deployment daemon set and stateful set in the namespace. And with our resource topology rule, we were trying to find some related resources with that workloads. For example, if you want to adopt a deployment, we will try to find the config map, service, ingress, and secret such configs that are related to that deployment and automatically adopt them as an application. So for example, if we have like, 10 deployments in my clusters, and we also have some config map and the secret, service and ingress that bind to that deployment, we can automatically, render them, orchestrate them as an application. So if you use this command, vela adopt all. Okay, if we only type this command, we will render the application for you. For example, you can see that this application. It has the components that is deployment, and also the configs that related to this, and the service, and the ingress, and some config maps. Okay, we can see that in our value X, it's our dashboard. So currently I don't have all this application, and I can type, and I can, you know, adopt it and apply them. Okay, so that this command will, you know, apply all the rendered application that adopt from native resources. So our value X will try to synchronize all these applications into the dashboard. So if we refresh this page, yeah, so we can see all of our just adopted applications. So in this case, if you want to, you know, adopt a native resources into application, then you can go to this command, and also you can, you know, customize your own rule to adopt all the resources. So we, in the adopt command, we will try to adopt the resources in with our policy that is read only and read only. So it means that if you use this command, we will not try to modify all the underlying resources. We will just try to adopt all the resources into an application so that you can manage later, or you can change the policy later. But if you want to, you know, customize your rule to find the different related resources, you can also try to write your own resource topology rule. So in this command, you can see that if you want to, you know, customize your resource topology rule, then you can use this flag to try to specify your own topology rule. And currently our native rule is in the it is in here. So you can see that we will just use some sub resources and peer resources to try to find to try to build this resource topology of all the workloads. For example, the deployment, it has a peer resources that points to config map, secret, and service ingress. So we will try to find the config map from this deployment, you know, within its volume. If it had the a volume type that called config map, then we will grab its the name of the config map and try to add its relations to this deployment, and same as below. So if you want to try to customize it, you can try to write the similar resource topology so that you can not only the native resources like deployment, you can also try to adopt customized resources if you can, you know, write your own rules. So this is the first topic here. And the second one is that, you know, currently the ChatGPT is really going viral. So we'd like to integrate it within our workflow or application. So I just write this step. So this step, we call it ChatGPT. So by writing it, it is really easy because our workflow has this capability to customize or to integrate other service very easily. So I inside of this step, I just use some, you know, HTTP capability to send request to the OpenAI. So so in our case, we can first like try to apply a deployment in the cluster, and, you know, pass the applied resources into the second step, so that we can you know, let ChatGPT to diagnose the resources if the resource is unhealthy. So this is the basic process. So first apply, and if the first step is failed, we can call the ChatGPT to diagnose the resources and see why this resource is failed. And if the resource is succeeded, then we can also ask ChatGPT to audit the resources to see that if there's some misconfiguration or some secure problem of this resource. So I have this pipeline here. So and this pipeline will like this process. So we have 3 steps here. So first, apply the resource, and second, if this step is succeeded, then it means that the resource is healthy. Then we will try to let ChatGPT to audit the resource to see if there's some misconfiguration. But if the first step is failed, then we'll try to let ChatGPT to diagnose the results to see if there's anything wrong. So first, we will try to run this pipeline. So the first step here, use an image called invalid, which means it will never be healthy. And we also add a timeout in this step so that the step will not stuck. Okay, I'm not sure if there's some network problem. Okay, I ran the first try like 20 minutes ago, and the first step is failed because the image is invalid. And the second step, ChatGPT will diagnose the step. Okay, the log shows here is, I think there's some, dashboard problem, but you can see the result here. The ChatGPT try to tell you what's the wrong with the resource. It is because the deployment has an invalid container image specified in the pod template. Okay, so actually you can also use the command called vela workflow logs. So basically, it's just the same capability that you can see in the dashboard. So you can, with this command, you can see all the logs that's specified in the step. So in my step definition, I will use the output of the ChatGPT as the log of this step so that we can check out the output of ChatGPT. Yeah, so it's the same reason that we can see in dashboard. It's just because we have specified an invalid image to that step. Okay, we can now like modify this. We now change the invalid image into an NGX image, and so that the first step will be successful. And we can see that if there's any advice from ChatGPT. Also, while we're waiting the execution of the pipeline, I also want to know that I have a online stream with Whitney from VMware, that we have a streaming on Twitch that talking about how the journey with KubeVela. So if you have interest, you can check out this Twitch streaming.
Can you post that link in the Zoom?
Oh, I can send it on Slack. Maybe after meeting. Wait a second. Okay. Oh, this is because the network problem. It's kind of hard for for our country to try to can connect to the ChatGPT. There's some problem. I think I need to.
Yeah, VPN matters.
I can run it a second time. Okay, the run that I just tried the first time is actually successful because because the controller will try to retry the failed step. So though the first try is failed because the network, the second try, I guess it is successful. Yeah, we can check out this with workflow logs. Which one is this? So the first step is successful. So so our controller will skip the second step because the condition of the second step is the first step's failure. So we will try to execute the third step. Yeah, so the ChatGPT also makes some suggestions to the underlying resources. It says the first, we need to use the specific and up-to-date image instead of NGX. And second, he says that we need to add some security configurations like pod security policies or etc. So this is the basic try that integrating ChatGPT into our workflow or into the Kubernetes ecosystem. But you can see there's some still there's a lot to do if you want to truly leverage the power of OpenAI. So if you have any like suggestions or advice that or ideas that how you want to use this in the application delivery, we can all discuss in the community. Okay, so that's all of the demos today. And any questions?
In the first section, when you demoed the vela adapt, so when you run the vela adapt apply, so it was read only apply, right? If somebody update the deployment not through the vela, will it sync? Will it sync whatever the recent changes to the deployment, or will?
You mean the adopt all demo?
Yeah.
Can you repeat your question? Is it about the applied deployment or
Yeah,
I'm not
after
sure.
you run the command vela adapt apply, so it
Yeah.
creates that applications for the Kubernetes objects, correct?
Okay, so if you first run this command called vela adopt, it will just render all the it will just render the application YAML. We will not apply it. Only if you have specified the command called dash apply, we will then apply the rendered YAML into the cluster.
That's correct. What happens if after you apply to the cluster, if somebody change the deployment, will that sync to that your application, or we have to rerun again?
Oh,
So let's say, yeah.
If the underlying deployment is changed, I think the controller have the capability to to resync the underlying resources from the cluster, but since the default adopt command will not take over all the resources, its policy is just read only, so that we will not change the online resources. We'll just watch the changes, and you can see it in the application.
Okay.
So would it be fair to say it's a good starting point if you want to get a bunch of Kubernetes objects into KubeVela quickly? You could do that, but then you should start maintaining them through KubeVela.
Yeah, I think it is a good start. Good start if you want to just, if you as a beginner, you just want to convert your native resources into KubeVela applications. But the adopt template is it's not suitable for everyone. It's just a good start to get to know what is your application should be like.
Yeah, and obviously it can't do things like adding traits or converting to Helm or anything like that, but it's a great starting point.
Oh, actually,
no.
it can convert to Helm, but
Wow.
if you want to add trait, because it is all about the adopt template, because it can be customized. So if you specify the trait type in the adopt template, then you can convert the native resources to trait. Or that, if you want to answer this question.
Yeah, no,
we
thank
have
you.
released a blog about the Vela adopt feature. You can read the KubeVela blog to learn more details. The blog name is release 1.7, adopt your workloads. And basically, we have two kinds of policies about the adopt command. By default, we will adopt it as a read-only policy. In the read-only policy, we will just do read operations without any write operations. So anyone who creates this workload, such as deployment or Helm chart, they can still modify their workloads through the old way, and the changes will sync to the Vela UX. So you will see the changes in the UI console and the Vela command. And after that, you can change the application YAML rendered and created by the Vela adopt command. You can modify the policy from read-only to takeover. Then the application controller will take over these underlying resources. After that, you can't modify the workload in the old way, and then you can add trait or do other things you want, and it will just run as the same applications, just like you created directly through the Vela ways.
Okay, great. So I think so. If you want to use Helm, you'd want to do one application at a time rather than doing all of them, wouldn't you? So that's a great starting point.
Actually, if you want to adopt Helm into your application, what we do is actually, get all the resources in the Helm releases and bound all the resources into one application. So in the Helm situation, Helm case, you can just use this adopt command, and we will actually, collect all the resources in one Helm release and convert it into an application with the read-only policy. So if you want to convert to trait or something else, you can then modify the rendered application.
Cool. Let me try it. Thank you.
Hey, sorry, Fog, but when we adopt a Helm release, are we recognize all resources by annotation or label?
No, we actually use the Helm command to get all the Helm releases in the cluster and get the resources in that release.
To be exact, to be precise, actually the Helm release has some underlying storage for the resources it has been dispatching, and by default that will be a secret stored in the same namespace of the Helm release. So what we are doing in the Vela adopt command when we try to adopt Helm chart is that we we get that secret and analyze the fields and recognize all the resources stored in that secret, so that we will get actually all the resources from the Helm chart. And by default, it's the secret. It's a secret driver, but Helm also supports other kind of storage driver. So we do not directly read the secret in the code, but instead we call the Helm API to get those things. Yeah.
So do we? So this when we talk about adopting the Helm resources, do we dependent on a Helm CLI command?
No, we do not.
Or you just call the
depend on
API of
yeah. We are using the you can see that we are using the same function contained in the Helm in the Helm code. Yeah.
Okay, so does it require some credentials? When
No, it
secret?
does not. Because Helm also use the standard credential of Kubernetes. So it's also aligned with the Vela CLI. So because Vela CLI also use the same Kubernetes credential. So the credential is used all along when the command runs.
Okay, so I get that it talks about the kubeconfig
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another issue we are supposed to be talking in this meeting. It's brought by. I have sent the issue link in the chat, and basically it's about how to describe a group of add-on with their version and their values, their specifications, and in this way, users can better to describe how what group of add-on they want to use and what the parameter they are using. I think the people who have raised this issue is also on this meeting. You have any ideas in this issue? I thought this was Andy or Michael. Someone who just mentioned that.
Yeah, are you still there, Michael?
I am, yes.
Michael. Yes, would you like to introduce some background or progress you want to in this issue?
Sure. Okay, so I'll just share my screen then. This is the issue. Well, let me see. 1 second. Can everyone see my screen here showing Vela add-on configuration file for enabling multiple add-ons?
Yes.
Okay, so in essence, we are developing multiple add-ons, and we're using the Vela add-on enable command to install them. But we have a collection of different add-ons that we want to install together, like as a bundle, basically. And you could implement this by just making separate calls to the Vela add-on enable command one by one sequentially. But ideally, we would like for this configuration to be stored as a file. And so for it to work similarly to like a kubectl apply command, where you could pass this configuration file to Vela add-on enable, and it would enable this list of add-ons, and it would pass in all the parameters that are used by each of these add-ons, like the version of the add-on or any additional overrides that you would want to specify, and it would, enable this collection. So that's basically what we're intending to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes,
very
I think it
useful
makes
function.
sense.
I
But
also
I have one question. So sorry.
okay, you
Yeah.
go.
So the question is that I remember you say that you want to use a kubectl apply to like to apply something into the cluster. So what exactly do you want to apply?
Well, in this case, I was using that simply as an example, in that, just assuming you're familiar with kubectl apply, where you would pass in a file like a YAML manifest to kubectl apply. This is just, think of it as an equivalent command. In this case, we're using vela addon enable. So this is an example command highlighted here. Vela addon enable already exists, right? But you can't, you pass it the name of an individual add-on to enable in a cluster. What we're saying that we'd like to do as an extension, this is just a suggestion that we were thinking about, would be for enable to support this file argument. And you could pass in a configuration file shown as YAML here. You could also use Q. And this would contain a list of add-ons instead of a single add-on. So I was just using kubectl apply as a kind of an example of another CLI tool.
I have one question that is this configuration file that's suited for a series of add-ons, or it can support one add-ons as well? Because the format is kind of slightly different in the two situation.
Yeah, I would think that you should be able to support one or multiple add-ons. And so if you were to just use the same file, but only define a single add-on here, it would work that way. But it could support multiple. So to go back to the other example of kubectl apply, in a manifest, it could contain multiple YAML documents, right? But it could also contain a single document. So you could just apply a deployment, or you could apply a deployment and a service and a config map, etc. So here, yeah, you could have one or many add-ons that you would want to apply or enable.
Yeah, if this is implemented, so I guess this is more like, I don't know, the code style is like a Java properties file. I think it would be better to write in YAML or Q.
I'm sorry. I think we won't accept this feature request. I think the request makes sense, but we won't add this this YAML configuration. I think it will become another app file which will conflict with the application and the workflow. Actually, if you want to set up a bundle of add-ons, you can just use workflow run to compose the vela add-on command with multiple steps. We have just implemented that in the version like 1.6, and we have set up a bunch of observability add-ons in that way. When you are using this a separated configuration file, you are just creating something like a new kind of application YAML, and it will the most concern from mine is it will conflict with the application YAML. Another conflict is it's a new way of add-on YAML. We already have we already have lots of configuration format, such as add-on metadata and workflow steps and application YAMLs, and we will have application catalog. And I think we can't add another configuration in this way, especially the format is a new way.
Yeah, but I think the feature that the user want to use it I think it's something that we cannot provide a better experience than this one. So although I agree that this format might not be very suitable for directly implemented in the Vela add-on enable command, but I think there might be some alternative ways we can work on to suppose that given some kinds of file, and you can enable list of add-ons to allow you to deliver a lot of add-ons in one command. Yeah. So it's just how we implemented. I think so.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that we should stress that this is simply an example, hypothetical example of what a configuration file might look like. I think the thing that we're the most interested in is that, like you just said, that we have a single command, Vela command, that is run, and we point it to a file, and that enables multiple add-ons and passes in all of the necessary parameters to enable those add-ons, like the version of the add-on, properties that might be passed in, etc.
Right. I agree with that.
Yes,
the
the
demo,
feature
and you
request
mentioned
makes
that.
sense. I think we really need some way that we can enable multiple add-ons in the client side and specify some parameters. The feature request makes sense, but we should discuss deeply about the solution.
Agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So the other reason, we wanted this configuration with the current Vela add-on enabled, right? It is just CLI command. So we use our CI's TeamCity. We're embedding all these parameters in the TeamCity build step. We don't have a way to audit track, right? If some value change, the TeamCity is not a very elegant solution to track what happened to the particular parameter, who changed it or something. But if you use as a source as a Git or some SCM system, then it would be easier for us to, whenever we make some changes to these add-ons or values, we can easily track, and we can also implement some kind of GitOps model to trigger this change. And also, like, that we use a different set of clusters. The values are not same for all the clusters. It may change depending on the cluster, what we use it for. So by providing this feature, I think we have more control on what the values, and we can change it based on the cluster or some kind of parameters.
Yeah, when it talks about enable add-on for multiple clusters, things become more complex.
No, but
we really should talk about that.
Yeah, but we don't. They are enabled. We don't need to support multiple clusters. But at this point, I think I agree what you guys are saying, that the format what we have is not very elegant. As long as if you agree that idea, then maybe we can work out how we can construct that file.
Yeah, yes, you don't need a multi-cluster support. That may be true, but we have to make it to compatible with existing features.
Actually, speak of multi-clusters. In the example here, just to satisfy that request, because clusters is also kinds of values. You just need to fill the clusters and the cluster lists in the values in the example. So
right, you could maybe have a clusters property that you could specify as well.
So we don't need to worry about the clusters, but I just don't like this kind of new format and new configuration files. We have too many configuration formats, and I also wonder who will maintain these configurations, and anyone who want to use this kind of configuration just need to they have to learn this kind of format. They have to learn the rules and create new ones. if they don't have any registry or catalog who have maintained these kinds of configurations, how can they use it smoothly?
Yeah, I think Jianbo is saying that instead of creating another new standard for describing applications, which will add more difficulties or learning experience for newcomers to understand how KubeVela works. So we better trying to reuse some existing mechanism so that so new one will not be confused with so many new configurations. So that's the point. But I think I think it's just the YAML file here is just an example, not exactly what we must use it to do. So we can change it later and define some other like more application like things. And I also have I also have a question about how to use how you use these things to deliver add-ons, because one of the things I see that is you say that these add-ons, like you name it as JS policy or external secrets, although I know that it's just an example, but I'm curious that if you are using add-ons as application templates, or you are using add-ons as plugins for the system. So I'm not sure, because I think Daniel is proposing the application catalog. So where I think like application configurations can be stored in the catalog, and there might be ways to apply multiple applications from the catalog through one file and one command. So if we decide to move on with this feature, I would like to see if it belongs to the scope of add-on, or instead it goes for the application catalog. Yeah, do you have any information for that?
Well, I will say that these particular add-ons that are listed are something that we have been developing as add-ons, currently using our internal registry, but we were interested in contributing these things to the open source catalog as well. Now, these are operators, so they have custom resources that are installed as part of them. And we also thought it might make sense for us to add in traits and other definitions. And so it seemed to make more sense to us as an add-on versus just a traditional application. And so, yeah, while these are simply examples within the scope of this feature request, these are add-ons that we're currently working on.
Yeah, cool. Then that is a add-on. Yeah, not the application, because it carries like definitions to extend the system.
Right.
That's correct. And the limitations what we have, why we need this configuration, they haven't, when it is packaging, it has the default values file, but we have the default values file is good for all the clusters, and we need to support different values for different clusters. But we cannot repack the Helm itself if you're using a third-party one, but we need to extend that to use it for our purpose. So that's where I think we're creating an add-on, and then way to providing override the values, whatever it is coming out of the Helm chart itself.
Okay, well, if I understand correctly, so you have already implemented this feature in something like CRD operators, right?
So we didn't implement, I think we just did some kind of a POC to see how we can get this one. We wrote simple CLI, but we're just looking at to see how we can leverage the Vela CLI itself instead of rewriting another CLI itself.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't read that.
I was just trying to depict
Yeah.
at the bottom here. I don't know if it'd be helpful or not, but today, the Vela add-on CLI supports installing add-ons in this sequential way, right? Where you
Yeah.
specify the name of the add-on. This would come from a registry, and then you can pass in additional properties. You mentioned clusters before, but also just properties passed to the add-on. And so that's basically what we were trying to do, is turn this sequence of commands into a single command where you can pass in all the properties you'd need to include with multiple add-ons in a single file. The actual format of the file, it could be YAML, it could be Q, it could have specific structure. I mean, all of that is up in the air. It's just the concept was to have this single command that takes care of this.
Does it important that this implementation must be the client side?
That it must be done client side? Is that what you're asking?
Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I
Yes.
was trying to understand your question.
Yes,
Yeah,
I'm asking if it's important that it must be the client side solution.
That's correct.
Okay.
Even I was just thinking more. I think that's what we are doing it. Right? I think before even applying add-on, we are converting from the JS, whatever the file, to Vela command, constructing it. Right? So it's more of a client side rather than server side. But if it is possible to convert in server side, it's okay. But I think preferably more client side, I guess. Unless you have any preference.
Yes, if we implement this in server side, we have really lots of solutions, such as using a new application that wrapper these add-on enable as the workflow steps, or just use the workflow run CRD.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes the things complicated. Because you have to set up a whole controller and a cluster. If they run them in the like a integration like CI or something else, you can't ask them to set up a whole cluster and workflow controllers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that it is quite reasonable to have this capability on the client side. So maybe we just need to, rediscuss this this configuration format in the issue later.
Yeah, we are fine with any format which works for this one. I think we just put some basic examples, but we're open to any format.
Okay, so today's result would be we have to have more deeply discussion about the spec, the implementation here about this issue. Yeah. And any other questions about this topic about KubeVela?
So we have one more issue. I think so you created an issue, right? The range version was not working. Do you want to show it them?
That's right. Now, I don't know that we have enough time to discuss it. Are you talking about this one here?
Yeah.
Add-on dependencies?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
Do we only have 4 minutes remaining?
Just
Yeah,
describe the
let's go
problem.
ahead.
Brief overview then. So in an add-on today, in its metadata file, you can define dependencies on other add-ons, right? So in this specific example, here's an add-on that has dependencies on Flux CD and just another add-on. And you can also have these system dependencies. Now, today though, there is a version property here, but it doesn't work like we're looking for. So the way the system mechanism works, this asserts that the system that you're deploying to meets certain criteria, right? Like the KubeVela version is greater than or equal to 1.7 or Kubernetes version 1.24. And this uses a semantic versioning range. we would like to support this same concept here for add-on dependencies. So we could say that this add-on requires flux CD greater than this, greater than or equal to this version and less than this version, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I got you, Michael. And first, why we didn't have a version limitation in the dependency of other add-ons? Because most of the time when we bump up the new version of add-ons, we keep the definition compatible with older one. So maybe you have met the problems that the new one have to be incompatible with older one, so you have to specify the dependencies version.
Right, that's what we're trying to ward off, basically. If you do have to make a breaking change in one add-on that is a dependency of another add-on, then you could make sure that your add-on remains compatible by specifying the version range, specifying the compatibility versions. So in this example, let's say flux CD has a breaking change. It changes the Helm release CRD to have a, maybe renames a property or something in 3.0. And if your add-on doesn't support it, then you say, okay, well, the add-on works. This version of this add-on works for this range of flux CD versions.
Yeah, I also think this is a reasonable feature request, because you cannot determine all the dependencies if the users are customizing their own add-ons. You cannot make sure all the capability compatibility is assured. But this format is actually a breaking change to the currently dependencies format. I'm not sure if we can add some like flux CD at it will not work. You need to specify the range, right? I think maybe we can discuss more about the format in the dependencies, because the main maintainer of the add-on is not in the meeting. So maybe he can have some more ideas that we can discuss on this issue.
Sure.
Yeah, but anyway, this feature request is really makes sense. We should support this kind of feature, but we must keep the compatibility.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah, initially I was thinking, a semantic versioning range and a semantic version, those two things are compatible. So like this version here, so just type in. And another example where version is using just this format, these are both semantic version ranges. It's just this one says a specific version, and this one is a range of versions, but these should both parse with the simver library. So that's something to think about, but it is still a good point that let's imagine that you have a user that's using this format, assuming that it means something specific. Like when they set this, they're not saying at the moment requires this exact version. They're saying if I need to install a dependency that's not there, then install this specific version. So you're right that it might, and I didn't think about that until now, that this might create a breaking change if we change the behavior to where this now means requires this exact version. I don't know if that made sense, but I agree with what you're saying, that it might be a breaking change, and we don't want to do that.
And I just come up with a new feature that if we just specify 1.2 without the 0.3, we are actually specifying that any version that in such as 1.2.1.3 or
Yeah.
or
You're
compatible
saying
with
that any
this.
patch can take with that minor. That's what, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right. So that's basically like saying, I think this.
Yeah.
Is this a reasonable? Is this a really standard
Valid.
spec?
Is it a valid way?
This, so
just
I mean, good question. I know you currently use this library of what is it? Go
Yes.
Simver, this
If-
one right here.
Yes, if
Yeah.
that library supports passing this kind of format, I think that's good. We just need to keep the compatibility. I'm not sure if
There we
there's
go.
really
It's,
a big change.
Okay.
Does
Yeah,
that
I was
mean
only
we can
familiar with
make
this
some
format
changes?
because Helm uses this same library. And so it uses these same kind of range formats. Anyway,
Okay, great.
Great.
so it would be
So
like this.
does this mean we can make some changes to this field and without introduce some break change of the meaning?
Well, I mean, I do still have this one concern that, like, let's imagine that you have someone who's using this today. So I'll just copy there. Let's imagine that someone has an add-on that they define. Let me expand this. And they are using version 2.3.3. Okay, this is what their add-on metadata looks like. And then today, what this means, from my understanding, is that your add-on depends on FluxCD, but so if FluxCD already exists in the cluster, it'll just go ahead and install it. It doesn't care about the version. But if FluxCD does not exist in the cluster, then it will install FluxCD and use this version of FluxCD to install it. So this isn't really a constraint like these are constraints today. But if we're talking about changing that to where we now use this new format, then these become constraints. So this would say FluxCD must be in this range. But if you had an add-on like what existed before, if this becomes a constraint, then FluxCD version 2.3.4 is now, breaking the installation of this add-on. So that's the main problem I didn't think about.
Oh, I get your point. Yes, this can be a big change.
Right.
Yeah, indeed.
I guess we should let Yue to be part of this question and have more discussion. Can we introduce a new field? I think that's an even worse idea. Okay, forget it. Okay, so I guess no more issues or questions. I think that's all for today's KubeVela community call. Thank you all for joining us today. See you next time, everyone.
And as to these two issues, we can continue discussing in the GitHub issue. So we can comment on that.
Great. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.